In this video, we're going to show you how to use Airtables to create an awards management system. We're going to take you through the process of, first of all, planning the data that you need to put into your Airtable base. We're then going to help you understand how to link all of that information together, then how to receive submissions into your platform, as well as how to manage your judges and manage their judgments on all of those submissions that have been received. And then at the very end, we're going to help you understand and formulate the data that you need to get from your base to be able to pick your winners. So let's go ahead and deep dive into how to build your awards management system. So before we build our Airtable base for our awards management, we want to consider some essential information. Let's first look at how are we going to structure the data. We need to think about what are the data sets that we will need to be able to review. And if we think of it like a spreadsheet, these could essentially be 4 tabs of your spreadsheet. One of the tabs is your categories. Another will be the submissions. That's the submissions that people are sending into you. Another tab would be for you to manage all of the judges who are going to be judging those submissions. And then the last tab would be all of those judgments. And as Airtable kind of looks and operates in a similar manner to Excel, it's very easy for us to think in sheets. Those sheets within Airtables are, of course, relatable, so it's more like an Access database. But if you just imagine these as our sheets, then that's a very helpful way of being able to segment the different types of data that you want to be able to track. Now then, the next thing we want to understand is what are the data fields that we want to capture per section, per data type, or by sheet. So here we have our categories, and we want to capture the category name, and we also want to be able to group within those categories all of the submissions that we've received. That's going to allow us to see all the submissions on all of those categories. We have our submissions table here. Here we want to capture the company, the category that that submission is for, which is here, as well as the relevant details, portfolio, and whatever other fields of data that you're going to want to capture for that particular submission to allow you to judge it. Next, we want the judges here, and we're going to capture their name, and we also want to relate all of their judgments. And then finally, up here, we have our judgments, which will be the judge who is providing that judgment, the submission that they are judging, as well as the category that submission is in, and then also the rating options. Now you'll see here it says to be determined, because that's the next area that we will need to ensure we have covered. That's the rating mechanism. How are we going to calculate the winner based on the data that we have? So you're going to need to decide on those measurements for your judgments. Will that be a scoring type of just 1 to 5, yes or no, etc.? What will the weights be if you have multiple types of ratings? So for example, you may have strength, you may have skill set, and you may be grading some at 1 to 5, and maybe some would be opinions, etc. However you build that up, you're going to need to have a think about that and then decide on what are the key fields you're going to need your judge to fill in, and then how are you going to look at that data and establish who the winner is of each category. Now in the demo that we're going to do, we're going to keep it simple, and we're just going to show you a basic rating mechanism. But again, if you have more than one rating mechanism, as well as other questions that you want to be able to make a decision on, then please be sure that you build into this list where it's starred at rating, build in those fields and make sure you've established how you're going to choose a winner based on those. That's your scoring types, your scoring weights, and how you're going to do your final calculations. All right, so without further ado, let's dive into Airtables and let's build this from the plan that we have made. Okay, what we have here is an empty Airtable base, and we are ready to first of all create those sheets or those data areas that we've already established. So let's get those created first, just as blank tables. So here we go. The first one was categories. Then we also had our submissions. Then we had our judges. So we want to monitor all of our judges who are going to be taking part. And then finally, we wanted our judgments. Now, with this, we have our 4 main data sets, and we can now start to build up those fields that we decided upon for these sections. So if we go to categories, we are not going to need, for now at least, these 2 default fields. So we'll go ahead and remove those, and then we can add any of the extra fields. We'll want to relate this, for example, to submissions. So let's relate this. So I've created a new field, submissions. And then I'm going to create this as a link field, and we're going to relate that to submissions. And then we're going to press save. What this will allow us to do at a later date, if we were going to manipulate this in the future, is see all of the submissions against the categories that we've established. So I'm going to go ahead and pop in some example categories. Okay, so you can see I've added these in here. And what we'll do now is head on over to the submissions table, and we're going to formulate how we want this to be structured. So we already have our category that we wanted to see, so let's place that there. That's because they're related. And then we're going to leave this notes field here, but we're going to rename it to details as per our plan. And we'll keep that as long text. We can remove the attachments here unless we wanted them to say upload the portfolio or upload any examples. And we're going to then add in the extra field of portfolio. And we're going to say, let's say this was, we want to see the website for that event, etc., or whatever it would be. We could just say URL, and we could use the URL field here. So portfolio, we want that URL, and press save. So that now gives us some information for the submission. We have our category, we have our details here, we have the portfolio there. And if we rename this name field to the company, then we're going to know, it could be contestant or company. We'll just say this is company, because this would be company submissions. So we've renamed that to company. Okay, let's jump on then into judges. We want the judge's name, and we're going to want to also relate the judgments to here as well. So let's go judgments, judgments, and let's link this record. So link to judgments. So that's all ready to rock and roll. And then let's pop into judgments because we want to build up the relevant records for that as well. So we're going to want to know obviously our judge here. So that's our judges. We have also our submission that we want to relate. So let's just delete these fields and let's link, link in here, link the submission. So we're linking the submissions there. And then what we can do is, because of the submission, we can do a lookup field to get the actual category so that we can see what the category is from that submission. And then finally, this was the bit that we starred in the presentation. We're going to want to start to put in our ratings, etc. Now, for this example, to keep it easy, we're just going to put one rating in there, and that's going to be a 5-star rating that you can provide to your judges. So you just want them to simply give that an overall rating for each and every submission. However, if you do have more, then you can just continue to add all of the different values that you want to be covered. So you may also look at adding another rating field called compliance, maybe. Maybe there's a compliance and you want to judge their level of compliance to some preset items that you've set up. So again, we could do a rating calculation for that, and we could change the percentage, and we can also change here the type of icon as well. So there are multiple elements that you could add, allowing your judge to rate. You could also provide notes to allow your judge to add notes, etc. Maybe even ask yes/no questions and those sorts of things. But remember, whatever you're doing here with all these sorts of scorings, you need to have understood and worked out how you are then therefore going to use that data to extrapolate the winner of that particular category. This certainly isn't something that we can advise, because we understand that every single competition, every contest, every award ceremony is completely different, as is every industry. But if you imagine you were going to be doing this inside of, say, Excel, then this is going to be the same sort of element, except you can provide this really nice user interface to your judges to allow them to judge. Okay, so we've now put in all of the data as per the plan that we made that we presented to you, and everything is all set up for some data. So I'm going to go ahead and put in some fake data. Okay, so what we've done now is I've added in some fake businesses. I've selected the category that they are going to be in. And what we can do now is show you, how to manipulate this data so it looks easier on the eye when you're managing this, and then also show you the process for allowing judges to look at these submissions and then provide their judgment to you. So first of all, let's look at this data. This is just a full list. It's a bit hard to work out who is in which event, etc. So let's group the data, who's in which category. So let's group the data by categories. So we can see here now that we have the best event organizer, best large event, and the best event. So these are our submissions. We can see the company who submitted it, we can see the category that they are in, and we can also see the details. If we were to click and expand on that, we can see all of the details about that particular submission, and we can go ahead and click on the portfolio. Now you can see here that judgments is left blank. We don't need to see that necessarily because we're going to see that in the judgment section, so we can actually right click and hide this field. If we switch back to categories, we can see that we have our categories down here, and if we right click on submissions, which is the linked data, we can also hide that field as well so that it's nice and basic information. The other cool thing within Airtable is you can reorder these tabs as well. So if categories is there for your data set but not necessarily important, doesn't need to be at the beginning, that can get moved. Okay, so if we go back to our submissions, we can now see all of our submissions in a nice clean order, which is easy for us to be able to consume and to be able to work through that information. Now you'll see here that we added our 3 judges. So for this, we're going to have 3 judges, and they're going to be judging all 3 categories each. So that's all the submissions in all of the categories. Remember, you may have that set up so certain judges will judge certain categories. But for this example, we're just going to do this based on these 3 people. That's me, Tim, and Larissa, who are going to be judging all of these 3 categories. So let's switch over to judgments. So this is where you're going to be receiving the information about those submissions from your judges. And we're going to want to create a nice form for your judge to be able to fill in based on each and every submission they review. So first of all, let's go and create a new form. So here is the form. We can see the name. We've got so that's the name of the record. We can update that later. We've got the judge. We've got their submission that they're judging, and the rating. Now, if I go back over here to the judgment, I can rename that or recustomize this field to show us the data that we need to see with regards to the submission, the category, and the judge. So if I go customize field content and then change this to a formula, I can then essentially use a good old Excel again, a formula here to concatenate all of that data together. So I want to see the submission. There we go. I'm then going to create a little separator here. I then want to see the category that submission is from. And then finally, let's put in another separator. I want to see the judge. Save. So that information is going to be automatically shown to me in there when I'm reviewing this later, which also then means that we can go back to this form and that name field will be removed. The judge does not need to select that name field. Okay, so we're going to disable Airtable branding, and we're also going to tick this show submit another response button there for the judge to be able to use. So let's share this form with our judge. So I'm going to copy this. This is the URL. We can hide this behind a password as well if this is sensitive information. And I am going to send that URL to the judge. So this is where the judge will be able to fill in their information on each and every submission that they're judging. And we've kept it simple. They're just simply doing a rating. But remember, they would see all of your questions, all of your scorings, all of your inputs that you've established based on that ratings exercise that we discussed you need to undertake. But for the simple demo, we've got a very simple rating system here. Now, the other thing your judge is going to be able to need to see is all of those submissions. So if we switch back over here to submissions, we can share this group listed view that you've provided and give them a copy of that as well. So we're creating a shareable view for the judge to be able to see that data. Okay, so let's then go through the process of being a judge. A judge will take a look at the data and they'll start at the top here with Best Event Organizer. So I can review this, I can read all the information about Golf Tango Limited, I can have a look at their portfolio and any other data, and then when I'm happy, I can submit my my judgment on that. So I'm going to switch over here to the form. I'm going to select me because I'm Lee Jackson, I'm the judge in this case. I'm going to select the submission that I'm reviewing, which is Golf Tango, and then I'm going to provide my rating, and I'm going to submit it. If I then go back to submit another response, I can switch back and I'm going to have a look at Hotel Dan Limited. I can read all of their information, and then again I can go ahead and I can make my relevant judgment and decide what scoring I'm going to provide to this particular submission, and so on and so forth. So I can slowly work my way through this data set. Now, the same would be if I was Tim as well. I would go in and I'd take a look at this, Golf Tango Limited, and I would just simply go ahead and select Tim instead, select the particular submission that I want to judge, and then I'll go ahead and submit that. If we just switch over here and take a look in our judgments as well, we can see all of these judgments coming in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause recording for a second. I'm going to pop in some fake ratings, and then we'll continue. Okay, so we've now received all of the judgments from our judges, and we have an awful lot of information here, but it's not helpful for me as the event organizer because I can't really extrapolate any particular lessons from this data. So let's go ahead and duplicate this view, and we're going to group this by category. So let's call this by category. And then we will group the data and select category. So now instantly we start to get an idea of all of the submissions for the companies based on the group. And what we can further do now is group this further by the submission as well, so that we can actually see information based on each and every submission within a particular category. Next, what we want to do is this rating is just summing up all of the ratings. So we actually want to see what the average is so that we can actually make a calculation based on the information that we've received. So now as the event organizer, I have this view. I can see each category. I could collapse all of the categories, and then I'll just open up that particular category that I want to look at to work out who the winner is. So let's take a look therefore at Best Event Organizer. I can see that all three judges have submitted for each submission their ratings, and then I can see the calculation for each and every one of them. And I can see here that my average rating for Golf Tango Limited is 4. It's got the highest scoring out of all of these. Therefore, we have our winner of Golf Tango Limited for this Best Event Organizer. Equally, we can continue to go through having a look at this data, and we can even organize things by the rating value as well. You'll see here that we've got two submissions here that actually tie. So again, you may be expanding on your rating information and your scoring and your weighting so that you can work out who a winner may be. You may have to take that down to a tie, etc. Let's also then expand this one over here. You can see here we have a clear winner with an average here of 5 for Fox Trom. So that will allow you to work out who your winners are. Now, all of this has assumed that you are getting in all of your submissions and then putting them into Airtable. However, you don't have to do that. You can do exactly what you did for your judges for your submissions. So you can create a form, get the information from the end user so that they could submit this into your system direct. And it's the exact same process as how we created our judge form. We can create a new form here. We want their company information. We want them to select their category. We want them to fill in their details and portfolio. We don't, however, want them to see this judgments area here because that's not appropriate. So we're going to remove that from this form. And we don't want them to show another branding. So we could also then say redirect them to a different URL. So let's just send them to Event Engine. So this would be us sending them to a different URL, and perhaps this would be sending them to pay for something, or maybe it could be to a download pack or whatever it might be. Now this form we can simply share, and then we can either embed the form on your website and it'll give you some code that you can use and you can see a preview of what the form is going to look like, Or alternatively, it could just be a URL like this one, where the user will be sent this URL and then they can fill in their submission. So they would put in example company, category. I would say I want to be in for that category. I would put in all of my details to help sell me as the winner. I would put in my portfolio URL, and then I would submit that. And then it's going to take me to eventengine.tv's website after a few seconds. Maybe that's going to be some of their information that you'll provide. Now, remember, if you want to actually take payment for people to submit, so if they're going to submit but they have to pay in advance, then you could use a system like Gravity Forms or some sort of form builder that integrates with Zapier, and take your payment and then push the information upon successful payment completion. And you could actually use something like Event Engine, where we use some of the best WordPress tools around, including Gravity Forms and Zapier integrations, which would allow you to take payments on your event website for people who are submitting themselves for award categories. And then once that payment has succeeded, the information would go into your Airtables, ready for your judges to then start to judge. Right. I hope this has been a useful demonstration of the power of Airtable and how you could be building your own awards management system to be able to receive submissions, to be able to judge those submissions, and also to be able to work out who should be the winners of those categories. If you have any questions, please do let us know. Either ask us in the comments below or check us out over here on eventengine.tv. Get in touch with that big button there and ask us any questions you may have. My name is Lee. It's been a pleasure working with Airtables with you today.